This morning is part 3 of a 9-part sermon series on living our UU values and covenant. It's totally fine if you haven't heard the first 2 parts. We'll continue to revisit this theme once a month this congregational year to learn more about our new UU values and covenant that was adopted this past summer at UU General Assembly. You can also find it on the back of your order of service. You can find previous entries in this series in our online sermon archives at frederickuu.org/sermons. This month, we are focusing on the value of justice. It says this, we work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. Not just some, not just the elite few, but all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes and to make decisions within our congregation, our association, and our society at large. Now, there's a lot to say about each of these new values and their accompanying covenant statements of how we kind of stay in right relationship around them. For our justice value, I want to invite us this morning to go deeper into 2 parts in particular. First, I want to say more about what does that term beloved community really mean? And then I want to explore what it means to talk about the future of inclusive democratic processes, especially in such a time as this. Let's begin with beloved community. This term was coined by the early 20th century American philosopher Josiah Royce. He was an influence on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it was Dr. King who helped popularize it. As early as the mid-1950s, with the Montgomery bus boycotts, Dr. King was already using the term beloved community. In his words, the end is reconciliation. What are we doing all this for? The end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opponents into friends. It is this love which brings about miracles in the hearts of men. Notice that King is not saying what we're often accustomed to in our highly competitive society. He's not saying that the end goal is to crush our opponents where we win and they lose. For King, building the beloved community is about the much harder work of restoring right relationship for all. And he used to say that the triple threats that most frequently hold us back from building the beloved community, it's racism, it's classism, and it's militarism. And he would say, I think if you were alive today, remember King was killed before the first Earth Day. I think he would add climate change and ecology to that list that hold us back. Dr. King, as well as Gandhi and so many before and since him, have shown us that politics does not have to be a zero-sum game where if somebody gets more, I get less. We actually can grow the whole pie. If we play better, if we play more wisely, more generously, more compassionately, instead of more cynically and hatefully, everyone can actually win. According to the King Center, for Dr. King, the beloved community was not some lofty utopian goal to be confused with the peaceable kingdom where the lion lays down with the lamb. The beloved community for King was a realistic, achievable goal that could be attained if a critical mass of people committed to and were trained in the method of nonviolence. Dr. King's beloved community was truly a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Standards like, why are we allowing billionaires to exist when people are hungry and don't have housing? For King, racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be embraced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood, of brotherhood, seeing us all as siblings. In the beloved community, international disputes will be resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries instead of military power. We will seek diplomatic solutions. Love and trust will triumph over fear and hatred. Peace with justice will prevail over war and military conflict. That is the dream of justice that Dr. King calls us to. Our challenge is to turn those dreams into deeds. And this dream is deeply aligned with the Universalist half of our UU heritage that puts love at the center. And as Dr. Cornel West often says, tenderness is what love feels like in private, but justice is what love looks like in public. Now, I know that this vision feels so very far away in light of our recent presidential election. Let's name the elephant in the room. But keep in mind that Dr. King started casting his vision for the beloved community in the 1950s, publicly, more than a decade before you would get, even pieces of that vision coming to partial fruition with like the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which, yes, I realize are being gutted and undermined in our backlash right now. Our challenge, we have found ourselves in one of those moments of cultural backlash. Our challenge is to commit ourselves to justice for the long haul. Relatedly, let's turn to the second part of our UU value of justice that I want to underscore: inclusive democratic processes. Along those lines of what we've been talking about, more mature versions of democracy do not merely seek to eke out 50% plus, 50.1% and then, railroad the rest through the 49.9%. That's sometimes called the tyranny of the mere majority. Inclusive democratic processes seek to widen our circle of concern, get as many people on board as possible, and build as broad a consensus and a diverse a coalition as possible. Last week, I shared with you a prescient quote from the American pragmatist philosopher Richard Rorty from his book, Achieving Our Country. That book is a fairly short and accessible place to start if you're curious to learn more about Rorty's work. This week, I want to share with you just one more quote from Rorty. This is from one of his most influential books. It's titled Contingency, Irony, Solidarity. This book is a kind of step up from Achieving Our Country. It's still accessible if you're interested. In the field of philosophy that is often, I was a religion philosophy double major, in the field of philosophy that is often rightly criticized for being needlessly difficult to read, Rorty is by far one of the clearest writers I've ever read in the professional field of philosophy. That may be to damn him with faint praise, but he really is a good writer. The quote I want to invite you to hear this morning, it's short and simple. He says this: we often keep in mind that we often call ourselves, as you use, a liberal religious tradition. He says, I borrow my definition of liberal from Judith Shklar, who says that liberals are people who think that cruelty is the worst thing we humans do. That's a profound insight I invite you to consider. They're saying not that pride is the greatest sin, not that actually any of the traditional 7 deadly sins are the most important, but that cruelty is the worst thing we can do. The intentional infliction of physical and mental suffering on others, especially when done deliberately, unnecessarily, with malice of forethought, opting into cruelty, actions where cruelty is the point. And as I have followed the breaking news this past week of President-elect Trump's cabinet nominees, I share many people's dire concerns about the serious cruelty and harm that could result from such people being confirmed. Time will tell whether or not these nominees are confirmed or rejected by the Senate. For now, in this sermon on our UU value of justice, as we prepare to face a democracy that does not share our UU value of inclusivity, I want to share with you just a few poems and reflections that have been on my heart and on my mind since the reflection. It's things that, if you ever know the question, like, what is saving your life right now? These are some poems and reflections that are kind of saving my life right now, and I want to offer them to you in case they might be helpful. They're touchstones for me in such a time as this. May they equip us, if only in part, for what is to come. The first part of this first poem, I want to warn you, it's hard to hear because it names some of the cruelty that authoritarian governments have and do and will continue to do. But stick with me because it soon pivots to the vital importance of building up and joining beloved communities like this one, which connect us to other beloved communities and that collectively can help sustain us through hard times. And just one related side note, we have a UUCF 101 about 5 times a year. We had 23 people sign up for that yesterday. So we'll have some new members soon. This poem is titled The Low Road by Marge Percy. She writes, "What can they do to you? What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up. They can bust you. They can break your fingers. They can blur you with drugs till you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child." That's something that people in this country are very concerned about. They can take your child, wall up your lover. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone, you can fight. You can refuse. You can take what revenge you can, but often they will roll over you. Think of Tiananmen Square. But two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. 3 people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With 4, you can play bridge. You can start an organization. You can start to have fun together, even amidst the horror. With 6, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner, and not have any seconds left over. You can hold a fundraising party. 12 makes a demonstration, 100 fills a hall, 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter. You can have your own newsletter with a lot less than 1,000, but 10,000, you have power in your own paper. 100,000, your own media, 10 million, your own country. It goes on, one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again and they say no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean by we. And each day you mean one more. We are stronger together. You are not and do not have to be in this alone. If you're feeling exhausted, I get it. I feel it. But part of what authoritarians aim to do is make us so tired from the overwhelming lies and nonsense and chaos and cruelty that we just give up. So please prioritize taking care of yourself. Do all you can to carve out spaces. Who are the people? Where are the places? What are the practices that keep you grounded? And instead of ratcheting up your nervous system, what are the people and places and practices that calm your nervous system down? Put yourself in proximity to that as much as you can. But don't miss out as well on what you uniquely can do in the days ahead in your particular and peculiar spheres of influence. Along those lines, in the wake of the election results, the author and journalist Rebecca Solnit, who's read one of Solnit's books? She's incredible. Everything she's written is fire. Her many books I highly recommend. She wrote a powerful piece in the Guardian newspaper titled, "Authoritarians like Trump love fear, defeatism, and surrender. Do not give them what they want. They don't deserve it." The whole article is worth reading in full. I'll limit myself to highlighting just one passage that feels particularly poignant and wise. She writes, none of us can deal with every issue at once, so don't try. Choosing which part of the problem to commit to, that is part of the work of resistance. Discerning what is yours to do and what is yours not to do. Some of you are already doing vital, important work on human rights, on climate or criminal justice. Some of you can commit to addressing immigration justice or be an underground railroad for abortions. Some of you will find your commitment or have skills and resources to bring to multiple issues. Or have Daniel Berrigan, the Jesuit priest turned anti-war organizer, once wrote, "One cannot level one's moral lance at every evil in the universe. There are just too many of them. But you can do something." And never forget this. The difference between doing something and doing nothing, that difference is everything. The difference between doing something and nothing, that difference is everything. We do not know what will happen, but we can know who we can commit to be in the face of whatever happens. That is a strong beginning. The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean that we cannot save anything. And everything we can save is worth saving. Everything we can save is worth saving. Julian Aguan, will let her have the last word. No offering is too small, no stone unneeded. All of us, without exception, are qualified to participate in the redemption and rescue of the world. I am committed to that work for justice. At the same time, I'm also aware that Inauguration Day, we still got another 2 months. And we're headed into both the holiday season and into the darkest, coldest time of the year. Who loves winter? Who doesn't love winter? Yeah, you're my people. No. I strive to love winter, but it's a hard time and a joyous time and a complicated time. Try to give yourself permission to rest and recuperate in the next 2 months. Do not let Trump colonize your mind in the meantime. In that spirit, one poem that's been on my mind and heart the past few days is Rosemary Watola Tromer's Lubriscus terrestris. That is the scientific name for the common earthworm. As we hurtle toward winter solstice into the darkest and coldest day of the year, I invite you to notice, are there some lessons for us from the common earthworm who so often tunnels into the darkness of the earth? She writes, "On a day when the world is weighty," can you feel the weight of the world? On a day when the world is weighty, dark, and dense with need, I want to be the earthworm that gives itself over to tunneling. It's every movement and act of bringing more spaciousness. And when minutes feel crushed by urgency, I want to meet the world worm-like, which is to say, grounded, consistent, even slow. No matter how desperate the situation, the worm does not tunnel faster nor burrow more. It knows it can take decades to build the fine soil that we so desperately need. It can take decades to build the fine soil. To whatever is compacted, the worm offers its good worm work, quietly bringing porosity to what is trodden and compressed. So often in my rush to repair, I end up exhausted. Let my gift to the world be my consistency, my devotion to openness, my willingness to be with what is. Let my gift to myself be patience as I tend to all that is dense and dark. There's one final piece that I want to leave you with. As many of you know, I'm an authorized teacher in the Buddhist meditative tradition. Importantly, Buddhism is not only about meditation, it's about how does all that time on the cushion change how you are in the world. One of the most meaningful examples in the Buddhist tradition is the tradition of the Bodhisattva, which is Sanskrit for a commitment to act for the liberation of all sentient beings, and to remain engaged in the world until all sentient beings are awakened. In our age in which narcissism, this endless need for admiration, this grandiose sense of self-importance, and a pathological lack of empathy with others. This age of narcissism is running rampant. A commitment to the liberation of all sentient beings can provide a wise, generous, and compassionate alternative. Here's how the 6th century sage Shantideva described the Bodhisattva vow. As I read it, notice if any aspects particularly resonate with you and the intentions you may want to set for the days ahead. Shantideva wrote, "May I be a guard for all those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge, for those who wish to cross the coming flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened." The poet Diane Ackerman has written a modern version of the Bodhisattva vow. Here too, notice if one or more parts particularly resonate with you for the intentions you may want to set for this coming season of our lives. She writes, "I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred." Some of you know that definition. Hating someone else is often like drinking poison yourself and hoping the other person dies. It's just ultimately not that effective. "I swear," she writes, "I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself humbly as a guardian of nature, a healer of misery, a messenger of wonder, and an architect of peace." Finally, I'll end with just a brief guided meditation from Jack Kornfield on how do you create your own Bodhisattva vow. You don't have to be limited to Shantideva or to Diane Ackerman. We'll only have a few minutes for now, but I invite you to spend more time on this practice later today or in the days to come as we seek to commit ourselves for the long haul to living out our UU value of justice, to build a beloved community, to achieve a more inclusive democracy. What specific intentions do you in particular feel called to make in your spheres of influence? So I invite you to take a deep breath. If you're comfortable doing so, put your feet just flat on the floor, sit up a little straighter so you can be relaxed yet alert. We're only going to be here a few moments. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. And if you're comfortable doing so, place one hand on heart center and another hand gently, compassionately on your gut. And ask your heart, right now in real time, with an openness to being surprised, ask your heart, if I were to make a vow for the days ahead, to set the compass of my mind, my heart, my spirit, if I were to make a vow to give voice to my highest intention, what would it be? And then listen for an answer. It need not be a poem. It might be as simple as I vow to protect those in danger, or I vow to be kind. Your heart will instruct you. As you quiet your mind and steady your heart, sense your deepest intention, the one that will help you be strong and focused for the long haul. We'll take just a few deep breaths for you to drop that question into your consciousness and then listen. If I were to make a vow to give voice to my highest intentions, to set the compass of my heart, what would it be? Invite you to gently return your attention to the room and to be on the lookout for every opportunity that may surprisingly come before you in the days ahead to live out your intention. And if you need to take that question on a walk later, or take it for a swim or a bike ride, spend some time with it in the coming days or weeks. Educate yourself about social justice. Side with love against racism and hatred. Give voice, time, energy, and care to alleviate suffering and to tend your personal and our collective well-being. Your freedom, the freedom you very much still have in many ways, empowers you to contribute to this world, to this one earth. Your love will show you the way to do so, because justice is what love looks like in public, even while remembering to be tender with yourself in private, because that's also what love looks like.